Okay, so here we are continuing on the second page. Number 3. At Tim Hortons, 1 coffee and 4 donuts costs $8. But 3 coffees and 6 donuts cost $16.50. Create 2 equations to determine the cost of each coffee, C, and each donut, D. But we do not have to solve. So we're just writing an equation that represents what that first sentence said. Let C be the cost of 1 donut, and let D be the cost, 1 coffee, and let D be the cost of 1 donut. So 1 coffee and is like a plus, 4 donuts costs $8. So that equation would look like this. 1C plus 4D equals 8. And here's our second statement. 3 coffees, so that's 3 C's, and, which is plus, 6 donuts costs, or is equal to, $16.15. So it'd be 3C plus 6D equals $16.50. And that's 2 linear equations, and we could solve them, but it asks do not solve. So we are going to equations of lines. It says find the equation of the following lines. So the first thing we should do is find the slope. And we can choose using slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1, or rise over run. These are the same equations, they're just a different method. So, I think somehow I made this graphic a little bit big here. Let's find 2 points on the line. There's a point, and it looks like right here is a point, or right here is a point. You can choose any 2 of those points. I'm going to go from one to the other. So here are 1, 2, 3 down, so that's -3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 to the right. So that means for this one, my slope is my rise, but I went down, so it's -3, and my run is to the right 5. I'm going to take a look at that. I can't reduce that. Those are both odd numbers, but I only need to write it with one sign, and if it's a negative, we always put it with the numerator. So the other thing I need is I need the y-intercept, and I think to myself, I know what the y-intercept. It is where the line crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to, so I'm going to look at the y-axis. This is the y-axis. It's the vertical one. Right here is 0, 2. So that means that b is equal to 2. So if I write out this equation, because I want to write it in the form of y equals mx plus b, y equals m is -3 over 5, x plus 2. So that is that line right there. It's a negative slope, and it crosses the y-axis at 2. Let's go on to the second one. And let's find 2 points on the line. The origin looks like it's right there. And this point way up here. So let's go 1, 2. That's 2 to the right. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 up. Now make sure when you do rise over run, the rise is the up and down. So m is 5 over 2. Rise is 5 up, 2 to the right. Now my y-intercept, if we take a look, where does it cross? Oh, it crosses right at 0, 0. So that means that b is equal to 0, because I'm looking at the y value of that. So what does our equation end up looking like? We look at y equals mx plus b. Show the substitution. M is 5 over 2. Write down the x. We didn't sub in for that. We just subbed in for the m. plus 0. But I don't need to have a plus 0 because I'm not really adding anything. Just write 5 over 2x. And that's the equation of the line. So that's finding the slope. All right, so now, without graphs, I'll just pause there for a second. If you want to pause it and get that, you can pause it and check your answers. I'm going to go up to C. So right here we want to find the equation of a line that passes through these 2 points, 5, 2 and 5, 14. So there's no graph involved. So I'll definitely need to use slope is equal to y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So I should label these points x1 and y1, x2 and y2, and then we're going to sub them in. So there's that point, 5, 14. So I get my equation ready, put brackets, 5, 14. 5 is the x, 14 is the y. So I take that point, I put it vertically, I start in the denominator and I go up. 2, 5 is the other point, 2 and 5. And then I do the math. 14 minus 5. If you need to use a calculator, you go ahead and do that. 14 minus 5. That is 9. And then 4 minus 2. That is 2. And I take a look at that and think, can I reduce that? Does that reduce at all? 9 is an odd number. 2 is even. Nope, I can't reduce that. So that's my slope. Now, I need to find the equation of the line, which means I'm looking for y equals mx plus b. So now I have to figure out what is the b. And I'm going to do that by choosing one point. I'll probably choose this one because it's smaller numbers, smaller values, and I'm going to choose the slope. And I'm going to sub those into the equation. So y is 5, m is this, 9 over 2, x is 2, and then we have the plus b. I'm not subbing in for that. That's what I'm looking for. So now I want to figure out what b is. So what should I do first? Well, I'm going to look at this because I know this is going to be 2 divided by 2. And if you're not sure 2 divided by 2 is going to be 1, you could go ahead and do this math right here and simplify it and watch what happens. 9 times 2 equals 18, but then I need to divide by 2. It ends up being 9. So really, you can just do the 2 divided by 2 first and you get 1. So you get 5 equals 9 plus b. Now you go ahead and you could think of this in your head. What do I add to 9 to make it 5? You think, oh well, I actually have to subtract. It's minus 4, but I can show you how to get that. So I need to get rid of this 9. I'm going to subtract 9. Whatever I do on one side, I must do on the other to keep it balanced. 9 minus 9 is 0. I'm going to go up here. And then over here, I have 5 minus 9. So if you need to do it on your calculator, you go ahead. 5 minus 9 equals negative 4. So I get negative 4 equals b. So that means that b equals negative 4. Whether it's this way or that way, it doesn't matter. And that does make sense because I need to do 9 minus 4. That would equal 5. So let's put those two things together in our y equals mx plus b. So I have to go back. M was 9 over 2. Write down the x, and b was actually minus 4. And there is the equation of the line. I know that I probably should use brackets and do subbing in, but I'm just running out of space. So if you need to do brackets and show the subbing in, you go ahead. All right. So here we are with D. It's the exact same type of question, except for the differences we have a negative in there. So let's go ahead and find the slope first. y2 minus y1 all over x2 minus x1. So I'll call this x1 y1, x2 y2. See, it's always an x and a y, and the subscripts are the same. So it's 1, 3. 1, 3. Put the first point, it kind of goes from the bottom to the top. Do the second point, negative 2, 9. Negative 2, 9. Because of this negative, there's a little bit more work involved. So I'm going to look at that. Negative and negative is really Subtracting a negative is really like adding a positive. So my numerator becomes 3 minus 9, and my denominator becomes 1 plus 2. So 3 minus 9 is going to be negative 6, and 1 plus 2 is 3. So my slope ends up being negative 6 divided by 3, which simplifies to negative 2. You really have to keep track of all your negatives there. So again, now I'm going to find b by subbing in. I'm going to use 1, 3 because it doesn't have a negative value, and m is equal to negative 2. So you write y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to sub in for x and y and m. So y is 3, m is negative 2, I'm going to put that in brackets, x is 1, m plus b. So let's do the math. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2 plus b. So now I'm going to solve for b. I want to get rid of this term, so I'm going to add 2 because the opposite of subtraction is addition. Do that on both sides, and then do the math. And I'm left with 3 plus 2 is 5, negative 2 plus 2 is 0, and I'm left with b. So b equals 5. Put those two things together. I'll show brackets here because I actually have the room. So now the y and the x, right? We always leave those in for the equation. All I'm subbing in now is I'm subbing in for the m, which is negative 2. Write down the x plus b. And then we would get rid of the brackets. Over here, I was subbing in for x and y, but that's because I wanted to solve for b. Over here, I'm just getting the equation of the line. Every line has to have an x and a y. There we go. Final answer. All right. We'll be going on to graphing. So if you need to pause it there, take a look at that, ask me any questions tomorrow. All right, last two graphing questions. They asked me to graph. I like graphing y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to look at that. That means my slope is 2, but I need to give it a run. That's going to be 1. And my b is my starting point. It's going to be negative 5. So there's no points on here. I'm going to label this y, label this x. This is going to be 0. I'm going to go up by 1s. So I want to start at negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right there is negative 5, negative 1. I'm going to go by 1s, and then I need to do a rise of 2. So this is going to be up 2, and this is going to be to the right 1. So up 2, 1, 2, 1 to the right. Up 2, 1 to the right. Follow that line. Up 2, 1 to the right. Up 2, 1 to the right. Once you have a bunch of lines, look at my ruler, here it is. A bunch of lines. Once you have a bunch of points, you can make a line. And that point right there on negative 5 should also be a point because that's the y-intercept. Draw a line, make it nice and long. You don't have to just connect your dots. Give it some arrows, and that is y is equal to 2x minus 5. Starts at negative 5 when x is 0, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Now, over here you have a choice. If you like to use intercepts, you just sub in a 0 and you solve for the other variable. That's easier to do when it's like this format, so I could show you that way. You don't have too much room, but I will show you. 3x minus 4y. I want to add 12 to both sides because I want to get rid of this term on that side. This is what it would look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sub in for x, a 0, and I'm going to solve for y. So this whole term ends up going away, and if I solve for y, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. And I chose that, so this would become 1, and I get y is equal to negative 3. So what that means is when x is 0, which is along here because this is x, When x is 0, y is equal to negative 3. So here's 0, 1, 2, 3 to the left. So right there, when x is 0, whoops, what did I just do? I just put when y is 0. Time out. When x is 0 right here, I'm going to go down 3 to where y is equal to negative 3, right there. So there we are, 0, negative 3. And that's how we find the y-intercept. Because the y-intercept occurs when x is equal to 0. So now I'll do the x-intercept. The x-intercept is when y is equal to 0. So I put in y is equal to 0, so 3x, but what happens is that whole term just disappears. So I'm just left with 3x equals 12. Divide both sides by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. I'm left with x is equal to 4. So that point is 4, 0. This is where I was going before. So y is 0, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4, 0. And then, in this case, you will only get 2 points when you do intercepts. And you still connect them carefully and draw the line nice and long. And there you go. So that's using the intercepts. Okay, page 2, fini.